Hey folks, welcome back to another review with yours truly, Sam Healey. Today we're taking a look at this big fellow right over here, Roar, King of the Pride. It's put out by IDW Games and designed by Daryl and Erica Bouyouris. Well, it is simply an area control game where you're trying to score the most points at the end of the game, and then there's also some mission cards that you can score throughout the course of the game as well. You do have to take care of starvation and making sure that your pride has enough food to eat, and there's a lot of other things that are there. Let's get down to the table. I'll show you how it works, and then we'll come back with some final thoughts in a few moments. Now, the point of Roar, King of the Pride, is to have the most points at the end of the game. And there are different kinds of scoring for each of the different player counts. For example, in a 4-player game, if you have the most lions, lionesses, food production, and territories, you're going to be getting 7 points each. Second place is going to be getting 5 points each. Third place getting 3 points each. And 0 for the person in last. If there is a tie for any of those places, both players score that place points, and then the next person down takes the other one. For example, if there are 2 people scored for 7 in a 4-player game, then the third person is going to get 3 points because technically they are in still third place. So points tallied are going to be those categories: the most lions, the most female lions, the most food production, and the most territories, in addition to any gold cards that you have scored through the course of the game. Whoever has the most points wins. Now, the game is carried out in a number of rounds that is determined by how many players are in the game. For example, in a 4-player game, it's going to be 12 rounds long, while in a 5-player game, it'll be 10 rounds, and so forth and so on. And the rounds are structured in a number of sequences, as you can see here on each of the different player boards. We have, first of all, that the first player token will move, and then aging happens, and then human activity occurs, followed by ancestral strength. Then players will take their turns, of which they get 2 actions each. And then finally, the last phase of the round will be starvation, checking to make sure that your pride has enough food to survive. Moving the first player token simply means that the person who had it passes it to their left, and then that person becomes the first player in the coming round. Aging has to do with these baby cub markers that we have on the board. Babies will be flipped over to their cub side, which then shows their gender. And then in the next round, after they have flipped over to their cub side, then the males will be replaced with male lion meeples, and the females will be replaced with female lion meeples on the board. The next phase is the human activity phase, where the last person, in this case, light blue over there, the Messiah Lion Pride, will be able to take one of these human huts and place it onto the board. When they place that onto the board, it has to go into a region that has 6 food production, or next to a province that already has a hut. So in the first phase or round of the game, it's going to go in one of these 6 places here. We'll just place it in the Congo right there. And then we go to the ancestral strength phase, where you can sacrifice a male lion from the board and place it over here in your respective column, which is going to help determine how powerful your pride is during attacks, defending, and roaring. After ancestral strength, we go through the player turns. Each player will get 2 actions to carry out in clockwise format. And once everybody has done that, we move to starvation, where we check the number of food production that we have. For example, the Transvaal lions here have 3 and 2. This is determined by these numbers wherever they have a female lion, because the lionesses are the hunters. So they have 5 food production, and each male lion eats 2 food, each female lion eats 1 food. So it's 2, 4, 5, 6. They only have 5, so the Transvaal lions will have to use one of their food tokens in order to survive in the first round. If they don't have any food tokens, then you're going to have to lose lions at the rate of 1 per deficit for female lions, or you could lose 2 with a male lion. And then after starvation occurs, the next round begins with the first player token moving, and so forth and so on. But let's go over the different actions that you can carry out on your turn. Now, as I said earlier, the actions that you get on your turn are 2. You can perform 2 actions on your turn, and you can perform the same action twice if you'd like to. The first possibility is simply drawing more mission cards. If you do that, you draw 2 cards from the top of the deck, and you may keep all, or none of them, or just one of them. It doesn't matter. It's just up to you, remembering that any mission card that you don't finish by the end of the game is negative points. Another possibility is moving. And moving is where you can spend 1 action and you can move any or all of your lions in 1 pride and 1 territory up to 2 spaces away. So for example here, we may want to move these 2 guys. Since we're only producing 2, we're going to go ahead and move up to 2 spaces away. So we'll go Zimbabwe, Zambia, like this. And our second action could be, if we wanted to move again, we could go 1, 2, like this. Now we own 3 different territories that produce 3 food each. So now we have this card that we can use at the end of the game, so we can score that. And that would be the end of my turn because I spent 2 movement actions. Now, another action that you can choose to do is called a sneak. And a sneak action can actually take place during a move if you choose to. But a sneak action would simply be if you have a pride that is lower strength than a neighboring tribe, you can sneak through that territory and not worry about it. So for example, the Maasai lion tribe here has a strength of 1, 2, and this pride only has a strength of 1. So in this case, this pride could sneak through Tanzania and go to Rwanda. You can also sneak through human territories, but if you do that, you'll have to lose 1 lion. Another action you can choose to do is a breed action. Wherever you have a male and a female lion in the same province, you can roll the breeding die. And if you roll a plus, that means you will get a bonus token that you can use on a future turn, whether it be to be +1 to breeding, +1 to strength during an attack, or +1 movement during a move action, whatever it might be. But if you roll any of the other faces, like the 1, 2, or 3 face, then you're going to be putting that many baby tokens into that province. Another action that you can choose to do is roaring. And roaring can occur when you have a male lion in a pride that is stronger than a neighboring pride that has a female in it. So in this case, the Maasai lion pride will roar at this Transvaal female lion, and that will be removed from the board, and then blue will be able to place another female lion in Kenya. And then finally, the last kind of action that you have available to you on your turn is attacking. Attacking occurs only when one pride is stronger than a neighboring pride. For example, here in Tanzania, the Maasai lions have a 2 strength, and the Transvaal lion here in South Drak only have a single strength. The strength of your pride is determined by the ancestral strength of your pride plus female lions. So the male lions are each worth a strength equal to the ancestral strength of your pride. Your female lions are always worth 1 strength, regardless of what your ancestral strength is. So if we come back over here to our attack example, blue has 1 for their male lion and 1 for their female lion, and brown only has 1 for their 1 male lion. So in this case, this male lion will have to retreat to a friendly province or to a province that's empty, and then blue would actually move in like this. Now, when you do that, when you move into the territory, you do have to move in as many lions as were necessary to make the attack successful. And that's generally how you play Roar, King of the Pride, with a number of rounds, as I mentioned before, determined by the number of players that are in the game. During the human activity phase is where you're actually keeping track of how many rounds have been traversed. In the 4-player game, you have 8 human activity markers. And in the first 8 rounds, you're going to be putting one of those markers out. Once all 8 markers are out, then during the human activity phase, the person who is last in that round will remove one human activity hut from the board and place it into one of these spots here, of course, starting with the top one and then going downward. And then once the final or 4th in a 4-player game, human hut is placed here, that denotes the end round. You finish that round, and then whoever has the most points is the winner. At first glance, this looks like just a very pleasant, let's make sure all of my lions are fed, score some points, and all that kind of stuff. Nah, it can get pretty cutthroat pretty fast. And if you're not careful, you can be knocked out of the round, but not the game. That's one thing that I did want to touch on. It is possible for you to lose your lions off the board completely. You are not eliminated from the game at that point, however. You'll be able to come back on the board at the beginning of the next round almost in any spot that you really want to, as long as it's an empty spot. So there is that. There's no exact player elimination, although you can lose all of your lions off of the board, which will put you in a pretty tough spot. But you're not out of the game completely. So with that being said, let's go ahead and talk about some of the pros of the game. And you probably were expecting this because it's a huge pro in my opinion, and that is the artwork. Vincent Dutrait is one of my favorite artists for board games that are out there right now. So when he has artwork in a game, I'm immediately interested. Of course, I still play the game to see if I like it or not, but I just love the look of the game. And the artwork in this one is somewhat minimalistic because it's just around. It's kind of provides the backdrop for the game, and it's not really center stage, so to speak. So with that having been said, I think that the artwork is great. I do wish there was a little bit more of it, though, because I just really enjoy his artistic style. As we're talking about artwork, I do want to throw in the component quality. I think the component quality in this game is top-notch. The cards have a very nice linen finish on them. Having the different lion meeples, one sculpt for lionesses and another sculpt for the male lions. I really enjoyed that. I thought it was a great thematic flair. Gives the game a little bit of a 3D look and aesthetic to the game rather than just having tokens all over the place. Second pro of the game is quite simply that there are variable player powers. Each faction of lions, each pride of lions has their own special ability that only they can do. And they do seem to be quite balanced. I don't think one is incredibly more powerful than the other, but they're all very cool and they give each faction a little bit of a different feel as you're playing them. So I like that. Just for some of the examples here, the Maasai lions, they can move up to 3 territories instead of just 2 for regular movement. The Congo lions can move past humans unnoticed, which is important because a lot of the Congo regions have 6 as their food production. So a lot of humans are going to be popping up in those areas. The Transvaal lions can add +1 cub on a successful breeding roll. The Bouyouris lions, as I mentioned earlier, start with 2 ancestral strength, so their male lions are a little bit more powerful than everybody else's. Another thing that I see is the balancing issue. So for example, the Transvaal lions, they start down in the Cape of Africa, which there isn't a whole lot of food production in those regions, so they start with more food production than anybody else. The Bouyouris lions start up here where there's in the north of Africa, and there's a lot of food production up here, so they don't start with as many food tokens as everybody else does, and it varies in degrees. So I like that balancing aspect of the game, and thrown in there I think is also the balancing of the different player powers that are there as well. So my first con of the game is going to be a simple one, and it's going to be kind of a light con as well because it doesn't really bother bother me that much, but it is there, and I see it causing a problem with some groups in the future, and that's the fact that this is kind of a mean game, or at least it can be played in a very mean way, and that you can place one of these human guys, and if they are placed in a region that has a bunch of cubs or baby tokens, then all of those cub or baby tokens are gone, and then the pride has to retreat out of that area. So the human activity phase can be really mean to other people based upon how you or where you place those human activity huts. And usually with a family weight game, I want less of that meanness in there. But the reason it's light is simply because I think that's only going to be where you're playing with a family, where you have the sibling rivalry thing going on, or maybe you have a younger kid and all the other kids are a little bit older, and so the younger kid will feel picked on, or whatever it might be. So that takes away from the family experience of the game slightly, but I don't think it affects, in a gamer situation where you're playing the game with friends, gamers, what have you. I don't think it's bothered at all, so that's why it's a light con. Another light con of the game is this guy right here, and usually dice rolling is something that is a positive for me, and really it's only a light negative for me in this one. This was kind of swingy. It's important for you to have or be able to have your pride growing throughout the course of the game more often than not. And having this scale from 0 to 3 is a little heavy-handed. I mean, if you don't do well rolling this breeding die, you're pretty much out possibly 14, even more points in a higher player count game. So all in all, that's about it for my thoughts on Roar King of the Pride. I like this game a lot, and I do seriously mean a lot. I think it's going to be one of those games that stays in my collection for a very long time, because I think there's going to be a lot of replayability, and that you can choose different starting locations for your people. You can choose different starting regions. I hear tell that they have some expansions in the works as well. I don't know truth about that. It's just rumors at this point, I think, but I hope that they certainly do, because I think there's a lot of different ways that you can expand this game that will improve its shelf life. So all in all, I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10, a definite high mark, a definite seal of approval from me, because it is a tremendously well-designed game, and it looks great on the table with Vincent Dutrait's artwork. So this is one that you definitely should give some credence to. Check it out as soon as you possibly can. As I always say, try before you buy, because you might not like it as much as I do, but hopefully you will. Well, that's about it from me. We'll see you guys on the flip side.